3.
Yummy like a gummy bear.
It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this for January 18th, 2024. For the next hour or so, let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, we find out what the best-selling game of 2023 was, and Plants vs. Zombies is back. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host of Game Mess Mornings. It's Jan Ochoa, everybody. Jan, how are you doing?
I am doing terrible and amazing, Grubb. I've bought 2 more poker books.
What the fuck? Oh, no.
I bought 2 more poker books. I think I'm, as pokeries say, I'm all in on the hobby.
Oh, no.
Let me tell you, Grubb.
Oh, no.
Again, I continue my blood feud with the nicest man on the internet, David Chen of the film cast Decoding TV. Apparently, he's going to have a new podcast with Patrick Klepek.
Yep.
Shouts out to Scoops. His book recommendation for, God, what is the book even called? The Biggest Bluff, I believe, by Maria. I just want to get this right. Maria Konnikova. Maybe one of the best books I've been listening to / reading over the past 2-3 years.
Okay.
And even if you're not a fan of poker, it kind of recontextualizes the game into something that is incredibly appealing to me. The chapter I'm at right now. One sec.
Yeah, no problem. I do. I mean, I was already someone who likes poker, but any sort of fiction or nonfiction story about card games and gambling, those are always so interesting to me. I don't know what it is.
Her metaphor for learning and discovering and becoming good at the game of poker originally started out as Sun Tzu, The Art of War, and then it evolved into you're playing jazz with your table mates, and not quite knowing what they have to do.
Of course, yes,
exactly.
Yeah,
and then now she has gone to the metaphor from a new coach of this is poker is kind of a narrative puzzle, and you got to figure out what everyone else is doing and why they did it and how that fits into your specific puzzle. And it's absolutely amazing. Grubb, I was playing an embargoed game last night for very long while I had the World Series of Poker of 2023 going on in the background. I'm a broken person.
Okay. So far, so good. All of that is acceptable. You got a new interest, a new hobby. This is a normal thing. Are you going to accept the invite to the Chinatown poker games? Because that might be a pretty dangerous proposition.
I had asked my friend, who, by the way, I haven't spoken to in, I looked it up, 6 years.
Right.
And I asked, hey, is it cool if someone just goes to watch and learn rather than play? And he said, well, I got to ask the crew.
Yeah.
And folks that follow this website know I have a very sordid history with San Francisco's Chinatown. And I looked where he plays poker at, the specific building, and it's very close to a building that I have a lot of history with that I don't quite want to share with the internet right now.
Sure. Okay.
I said Chinatown gets down, though.
Oh, of course. Listen, and you can have a good time in Chinatown. You can do some fun stuff. I'm mostly just worried about, I bet they play serious there, and I bet it would be very easy to quickly lose a lot of money in a Chinatown card game.
Go to Lipo Lounge for a nice Mai Tai if you're ever in San Francisco.
And just tell them you know Jan Ochoa, and then they'll kick you out, apparently. Get out of here. You're one of Jan Ochoa's friends? Well, listen, I'm still very invested in this arc. If you need someone to back your bankroll, I'll invest in that. I'll just need my VIG, of course. It's going to be a good time.
Imagine, Grubb, if a year from now I only exclusively wear sunglasses all the time.
Okay. First of all, that'd be great. You should get the sunglasses look up the card player. I think he was called Lizard Man. He won, I think, the year after Chris Moneymaker won, and he had the best luck ever. He went on such a lucky streak, but he had these glasses that had the holographic dinosaur eyes, and he would wear those at the table. I think it was Lizard Man. I'm pretty sure that was his name.
I'm all for this.
If the Lions go to the Super Bowl, Jam, which is a big if, it's a huge if. There's a lot of really good teams in front of them, especially the 49ers. That's the team I'm most worried about, Packers, all that stuff. But if they go, it will be in Las Vegas. I will have about 2 weeks before that happens to before I'll know they're going to the Super Bowl and then they're going to play in the Super Bowl. That's 2 weeks. I might try to spend that first week like raising money on like Twitch or something to see if I could go, and then I might go to Las Vegas and try to see if I can go to the Super Bowl. But I might just go to Las Vegas, and I'm like, oh yeah, while I'm there, maybe I'll play some card games. I don't know. We'll see.
Hey, Mike, what are you doing? Dan, what are you doing?
Yeah, well, hey, Super Bowl.
Time.
Let's go.
Yeah. Let's do it. Let's not do it, but let's do it.
But yeah, of course. Listen, we can find some reasons to get to Vegas one way or the other. Let's explain what we do here. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. All right, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with the 2023 Circana report. Circana, of course, used to be known as NPD. This is from Matt Piscatella. The December 2023 U.S. video game market highlights include annual U.S. spending on video game content, hardware, and accessories reaching $57.2 billion in 2023. That's an increase of 1% when compared to 2022, so still up. But we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. December spending specifically grew 4% to $7.9 billion. So that's quite a bit ahead. So the rest of the year dragging down what was a pretty successful December. Let's see here. Video game hardware specifically in December was up 4%. That was a big growth area for it. And then video game accessories up 14%. For the year, though, hardware was even with 2022. And then video game content was up only 1%, and accessories were only up 4%. So 2023, great year, not necessarily growing rapidly in the console space for the most part. The best-selling game of December was Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, but the best-selling game of the year, Jan, is officially now breaking Call of Duty's streak for the first time in a long time for a game that didn't come from Rockstar. It's the first time anything other than a Rockstar game has outsold Call of Duty for the year in the United States. It's a little bit shaky because The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom at number 5 for the top selling games of the year, but that's without digital sales. You put in digital sales, it could very easily be up there at the top, maybe just behind Hogwarts Legacy, or potentially even just ahead of it. Not too surprising. I'll say at the same time, Avatar, the Frontiers of Pandora debuted in December, and it only debuted at number 6 behind Marvel's Spider-Man 2. Hogwarts Legacy still outsold it in December. So it's not like, okay, just go get any huge brand and it's going to work. You're still going to probably need a select handful of brands that can push things over the top.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Looking at the top 10 of top selling 2023 games, there's 3 that are licensed games, because we have Hogwarts Legacy, Spider-Man 2, and Star Wars Jedi Survivor.
Yep, good point.
And I was thinking
sports games,
discounting the sports games, yes. And I was thinking, wow, we're in this reality again, Grubb, where licensed games are the hotness right now. And that's discounting before we even move on to transmedia, where we're getting shows and movies adapted from games, because then that muddies the pot even more. But you're right. Just because you get a licensed game is not a golden ticket to amazing, gigantic sales. If you go get that actually might be amazing. If you get the Maze Runner book IP to turn into a game, I don't think that's going to translate into millions and millions like the Hogwarts Legacy games. Even a very popular franchise like the Hunger Games. I know that the Hunger Games format of Battle Royale has been very popular with PUBG, Fortnite, DayZ, etc. but I don't think that specific IP turned into a game is going to be translate into big dollar signs.
Right. Yeah. Like, it's easy to imagine that like a lot of the Hunger Games audience just doesn't care, isn't asking for a game at all. Like that's not not their area of interest. Many are, I'm sure. But you're right. There's no guarantee, no golden ticket. That's one of the things that Matt Piscatella brings up is that there's a continued widening of the gap between what succeeds and what fails. He says it is illustrated as a shrinking middle, where there are games that are at the top that's really, really hit hard and succeed, and they sell a ton. And then if you miss really hard, and it's a kind of a disaster. And we've talked about this a bunch of times now, where it's like, oh yeah, that game missed and it just evaporated and went nowhere. And then a lot of these other games are hitting and then they're doing really well. I mean, like a couple million sold for, Dead Island 2 and things like that. Like that's pretty impressive. But it's like, okay, that one hit. That counts as a big hit. And that's actually a couple million sold for a game like that. That's a huge hit, actually. But then when you miss, like it really does feel like we don't ever like hear about some of these games ever again. I don't know if Avatar's gonna where Avatar's gonna fall. Maybe the IP does help push it into some weird new middle where being a middle ground game for Avatar actually still a very bad thing, because that's probably an expensive game to make, an expensive IP to license, and therefore actually no, it still kind of counts as one of these ones that missed pretty hard relative to its budget, right?
Yeah, I think unfortunately got lost with a shuffle of December, where proper timing would have been to try and time it out with digital release of Way of Water, or some type of Avatar anniversary. The power of AWOL wasn't enough. But the thing, if for some reason, if folks are getting super upset that Hogwarts Legacy is the top selling game, they should keep in mind this doesn't include digital sales, correct, Grubb?
So this does include digital sales for everything except for the ones that are marked with the asterisk. So that would be number 5, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom doesn't include digital sales. Super Mario Brothers Wonder is the next one that doesn't include digital sales. That was number 12 for the year. And then it's mostly Nintendo games, but also MLB The Show doesn't include digital sales on Xbox, I think. It's here in small text or whatever. Maybe it's not on Steam. But yeah, then Mario Kart 8, the 19th best-selling game of 2023, it doesn't include digital sales as well. Imagine if you included digital sales for that. You probably do get to about, that probably moves up above stuff like Dead Island 2 at 15 and MLB The Show 23 at 14, stuff like that. So that's wild. But yes, the rest of these include physical and digital. The publishers share that data with Circana.
Well, I was going to say, I was surprised to not see Baldur's Gate 3 anywhere on this list.
So that is a good point to bring up. Baldur's Gate 3 is likely a Larian published game, and Larian likely does not share their data with the Circana. This includes digital data from the people who share it. And then they don't try to, Matt's has a kind of a line about this. He's like, I'm not going to try to extrapolate. I'm not going to do any algorithms to try to predict where a game would be. I'm just going to use the data I have, and then I will share with you. I'll tell you which the data I don't have. And if you get his report, there's another tab that says, here are the publishers that share their data. And if they're not listed here, we don't have them. So he tries to be transparent on that side. So they just don't have that data likely. I bet you bring Baldur's Gate 3 in, it's probably right around, Diablo 4, right around there. So I would imagine. Right.
Yeah, because I'm looking at Diablo 4 being number 6, and I continually forgot that game came out last year, Grubb.
Now, it did sell very, very well. Diablo 4 had a huge, huge launch. I think we forget about it because Diablo is one of those games that is supposed to be kind of ever in the conversation, at least in its first couple of years. And it's like, oh, no, there's definitely people playing it, but not like we were expecting necessarily. Overall, the video game industry growing 1% is below the expectation of about 3%, which was Circana's forecast and sort of the industry's expectations that video games in the United States for console and Steam and stuff like that, the stuff that's tracked would grow about 3%. So it's like, okay, things are maybe a little bit slower, a little bit more stuck in the mud than was expected. And it maybe even like a little bit more so than it should be, considering like the several big games that did come out that we were all saying, these are massive. This is what we've been waiting for. And yet not quite as much money spent on this stuff as we were thinking. Is part of that, Jan, you think that People continue to diversify into stuff like, oh, hey, we're all playing Lethal Company, and we're all playing these things that aren't tracked by Circana necessarily.
I think that's an aspect of it, but I also think that the casual audience is not being factored in enough, where those are the people that will buy a console for one game, maybe two games. And we see that definitely represented here with Hogwarts Legacy and two separate Call of Duty titles in the top 10 spot here, and also all these sports titles, right? And I think that spending may be tracking down despite these gigantic games coming out, because of those people now. And I don't mean those people in a derogatory term at all. But I'm just saying the even more casual gamers, the super cash folks out there are part of the bigger pot now, again, because of games like this and PS5s being more readily available than they were during the pandemic, earlier parts of the pandemic. That's why maybe spending's down.
Yeah.
That's my assumption.
So, and then Circana, Matt Pescatella, he here's one of his answers. And it's like, yeah, this has always been humming in the background. And I suppose by the end of 2023, this is a bit major factor. Fortnite, Minecraft, Roblox, GTA, and Call of Duty as a group are so successful at pulling in players/player hours that it's becoming very tough to compete with just that glob of games as a hobby, right? And of course, we see that, right? We know that's like, especially like Fortnite having that second, third wind or whatever it's on now, where it's like, okay, we have the most players ever at this point. That stuff is going to suck the wind out of the room and make it so that when you are talking to your friends, you're like, should we all buy this new game that just came out and play that? You guys want to talk about this or whatever? It's like, no, we already all have investment in Fortnite, time invested. We have a bunch of skins. Everyone's playing it again. Can we just go hang out in that again? It's a safe bet. I think that happened in a big way. And that's like that happens because the games are good right now. A lot of these multiplayer games are good right now. It also happens because people are worried about spending money on stuff when the economy's not as quite as strong, or at least in many people's perceptions, it's not quite as strong, right?
100%. And also factor in how big mobile gaming is and how that carrot on the stick is easier to digest than like $70 per title. Maybe it's $5 per spin on the gacha wheel, right?
Yes.
All right, well, maybe my wife or husbando will finally come out of this space train if I spend this $5 or this $10 spaced out over the course of like, I don't know, every like pay period, right? Of like, all right, well, here's my gacha allotment of the month.
Yeah.
Or not even specifically a game in the MiHoYo verse like Honkai or God, what's the other game?
Genshin Impact, yeah.
Mobile transactions with other games, all of the games that are clones of popular games that have gigantic audiences that continues to astound me.
Yes.
Clash Royale is still a big game.
Clash Royale is massive. Absolutely. Candy Crush Saga, Clash Royale, Clash of Clans, these games have been big for a decade straight and they continue to be big. Clash Royale.
Marvel Snap, I know like the audience is like slightly dipped from the initial boom, but like
like the Pokemon Go kind of dip where it's like, oh my, okay, this game could still easily make $500 to $800 million a year, no problem, every year for the next 5, 6, 7 years. That does remind me, I was listening to Spawnwave's new show this morning on my walk, and he pointed out that Grand Theft Auto 6, the trailer on YouTube, is now the second most watched video game trailer of all time with 160 million views. I can't remember the game it beat to get to that point. That was less interesting, though, than the number one game, which has 360 million views. Jan, do you have a guess what that game is?
Five Nights at Freddy's.
That's like a really solid guess. It's actually Subway Surfers.
What?
Subway Surfers. It's that one that is often...
The Temple Run?
The Temple Run, yeah, but like on subway tracks where you jump on stuff.
Yeah.
Now, if you think about it for a second, you got to they have to be just like using that trailer in advertisements, right? It's got to be like a part of their user acquisition strategy to just play that trailer in front of other YouTube videos, or maybe even like inside of other mobile apps as part of their advertisement or whatever. Maybe just like links into that YouTube video. I think that's what's happening, but who knows?
Oh no, yeah, I buy it. Jesus Christ, Subway Surfers. What are we doing, Grubb?
Subway Surfers. That's right. Subway Surfers is one of those games that like is on the bottom half of a lot of TikTok videos. So
It is, yeah. It's either you're going through a weird Minecraft platforming video.
I want to do one of those Minecraft platforming things, by the way. Yes, it's either that, Subway Surfers, or maybe a handful of other things.
Grubb, the newest one I've seen in the TikTok meta of exploiting a Reddit post while having something going on in the background is Spider-Man 2 swinging.
Yeah, of course. We knew it was going to happen. I'm down with it. I'm in favor of it. Let's see, a couple other notes from Matt here. The middle is shrinking. We mentioned that 2024 likely to be bumpy. He says a lot is riding on the potential of new Nintendo hardware, and I think when we have this conversation a lot of times, Jan, we're like, well, yeah, maybe we get new Nintendo hardware this year. Maybe we don't. We're probably going to get it. Nintendo's in a good position. They don't really need it. I don't usually think about, but obviously it's true. I don't usually think about, the industry is kind of like counting on this in a lot of ways. Now, third party doesn't necessarily always do super well on Nintendo hardware. They've definitely done better on the Switch than they have on more recent Nintendo devices before that. But it's like, man, no, if this next one takes off, it will at least can float like third-party peripheral manufacturers, and then a lot of indie studios can rely on the success of a new Nintendo hardware to help them sell a ton of those games, and then some lucky select third-party publishers will be able to ride that wave something as well. Ubisoft usually does a pretty good job of that. But yeah, the overall health of the industry kind of riding on Nintendo being able to replicate the success of the Switch. With that in mind, it's like, oh yeah, there's a lot of pressure on that system all of a sudden. I don't think Nintendo cares, but the industry overall, like looking at that thing, we saw that from that Japanese report where they talked to a lot of Japanese developers. They're like, a lot of talk about new Nintendo hardware. Yo, that's what everyone's talking about, and I kind of get it. Like, especially if you're a Japanese developer. That is like where your games are selling in Japan is on Nintendo hardware. So yeah, a lot riding on that. I mean, do you think that do you think it does hit the ground running and that we're good to go and people could take a little bit of a sigh of relief here?
I think we're going to hit the ground first. I think in classic Nintendo fashion, it'll be a little bit of a head scratcher.
Sure.
People will be like, well, this is stupid. And then slowly realize of like, oh, okay, I'm gonna continue to let Nintendo cook. They're a bunch of oddballs and fun people over there. So maybe this will be fun. And then it'll wind up doing gangbusters, Grubb. Because the thing, I don't know why I decided to dive deep into this, but I dove deep into like a comment thread on TikTok having a game discussion discourse over there. And if you think it's terrible on Twitter, it's worse on TikTok. And then like someone broke it down. Someone still has, for whatever reason, the mentality that Nintendo is for babies.
Oh, of course.
It is not the cheese pizza, right?
No.
In fact, it is the whole fucking pie in this instance. It is a whole pizzeria, because when this person broke down the sales, and I think you'd get a kick out of this, Grubb, specifically of Luigi's Mansion 3.
Oh yeah, that's our influence right there.
Versus these AAA games, and how Luigi's Mansion 3 blows it out of the fucking water still, that shut the person up. So I think if Nintendo... Scout, I swear to God, no one's vacuuming today. If Nintendo can recapture lightning in the bottle, not specifically with the wonder and pizzazz of what the fuck is the Switch.
Yeah.
Also just leaning into Nintendo being Nintendo, because there's no other publishers or developers really leaning in that direction, right?
Not really. Not with that much swagger. Yeah.
Yeah. Then I think they can pull it off again. And I think the outlier that folks are not factoring into whatever the Switch 2 or the next console, Switch Plus that is coming out, is I think it is suspect that Nintendo has not done anything again with a gangbuster like Ring Fit.
Yeah. Well,
and I think
they know, right, that you do one of those per console. That's what they were telling Ubisoft about Mario plus Rabbids, right? Save the next one for the next device and let it sell throughout the entire hardware generation. That's what we're doing. They will do. I think they have a Ring Fit ready to go in year one of the new device, of the new system, right?
Exactly is what they're going to do. But also, I feel like with new consoles specifically, Grubb, we saw how people not necessarily plugged into games were getting PS5s because it was the new hotness. I think that zeitgeist of I gotta have it tech is also going to percolate in a special way for Nintendo.
Nintendo's good about creating that urgency with forced obsolescence. They whether or not it never actually usually matters, the stuff that they highlight in the first year about, hey, this is what this thing can do. Here's the IR camera. Here is an IR sensor on the Game Boy Color. Here is a nub on the new 3DS XL. All these things where it's like they. And I say they do a good job. I think most people are gonna hear those things like all those things are fucking stupid, and you're right. But in the lead up to launching those devices, they somehow always find a way to make it feel like this could be important, and I don't want to miss out on this because I feel like I might be missing out on the next thing. And that FOMO, which is what forced obsolescence is 100% about, they're good at like leaning into that and making people think that stuff's going to matter. And then at the end of the day, the thing that always matters is the games, and they're very good at that. And we sort of, although what everybody's 1-2 switch bullshit goes into the background very quickly. We stop even like really thinking about that game, let alone any of those like hardware features that made it possible, and we just start playing games again. And I think Nintendo for the next device, very likely to be very similar to the Switch. They will find some bullshits, like probably multiple little things to emphasize about how this thing is different and how it's going to be this neat little new toy. Maybe Rob the Robot will be built in again. They'll do something like that, and then again we'll forget about all of it, and it'll be about the games.
Here's my new bold prediction, Grubb. I've been joking around for months, if not years now, that the Switch 2 will just be 2 Switches taped together. I've seen folks take this joke, and I'm offended. I'm like, you motherfuckers! I thought of this first. We probably thought of it at the same time. I think Nintendo's going to be. They're going to lean into the weird. You know what they're going to introduce into this, Grubb? This is probably bullshit. I know this is bullshit, but this is my dream booking. They're going to introduce a watch. They're going to introduce some type of wearable into this.
Did Samsung just release a ring? Someone mentioned that, and I didn't look into it at all. I'm like, a fucking Samsung Galaxy ring sounds really fucking stupid, and I kind of want it. They did okay.
Think about
the vitality sensor. Maybe they do a watch with the vitality sensor built in.
Mm-hmm.
It's back.
Where did that go? I've been Pokemon sleeping. What's that gonna do, Grubb? They already got the ring fit to like with a Pilates ring. Why not track me while I sleep?
Yeah, Nintendo already gets all my waking hours. They might as well get all my sleeping hours as well. It only seems fair at this point.
Mr. Game and Watch.
It's back. Let's go. I think the thing is we kind of know what to expect from the trajectory of PlayStation 5 and the Xbox, and then the wider like console space, and they're just not going to have this sudden surge in growth anytime soon. A new Nintendo device could have something that looks like a surge relative to what they're doing, but we're gonna have to wait and see. It's Nintendo. It's always a roll of the dice when they have new hardware. It could turn people off. We'll see.
Oh, here's the thing, Grubb. I
Please.
love the PS5. I think Microsoft is doing wonderful things lately. I love Game Pass, but the thing is, this shit's boring as fuck.
It's well known. It's well trodden territory at this point. Yeah.
Give me the weird shit. I think we all need the weird shit.
This is why I get like into my weird handhelds, because I'm like, this thing is kind of stupid in a lot of ways, and I love stupid.
For people thinking that I'm insane for thinking that Nintendo might make a wearable, let's turn the clock back, folks. Wasn't there a certain glove device that Nintendo put out that didn't quite work out? Huh?
If the Power Glove coming back is what happens in 2024, I'm all in favor. The Power Glove was the Power Glove Nintendo? Like, were they actually involved in that? They did like hype it up in their movie, so I wasn't ever sure. I know Mattel was involved.
I see. The thing is, I think about Nintendo and I think about these rooftop parties. I think about how they want to inadvertently have games be very social. And I feel like Street Pass was like a test of that.
Yeah.
A long running test that was very popular with a subset of the community. Fucking imagine like bumping wrists with a Nintendo watch.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Nintendo?
You just dab.
Doug?
Yeah.
Cut the check.
Ooh, I like it. It just registers every time you get the dap in there. Okay, I like it. All right, we're gonna take a break. That's a lot of Circana talk. We'll be back after this to talk about the rest of the headlines, including Rocksteady founders having a new studio, Plants vs. Zombies 3, and a lot more. Right after this. We're back, and before we get into it, I was Mortal Kombat Mythologies. Mike Miquanchi started yesterday, and I did have to check out this game for myself because I'm like, man, this looks so bizarre, and I don't remember what it's like after playing it all those years ago. And at first I was trying the N64 version, and it's so much worse than the PlayStation version. Actually, it's not just the cutscenes. It's stiffer, and obviously like having the C stick or the C buttons mapped to the stick is bad. So I could have remapped the controls, and that probably would have helped a little bit. But I moved over to the PlayStation version, and I got through it. You know what makes it easier is watching Mike struggle for like 2 hours, and I'm like, oh, now I know what to do. So I got through that first level on like my second try. And it was like, so I'm like, okay. And now I'm going to try to like, see if I can like just kind of keep up with him as he does this stuff. So once he beats the second level, I'm going to try to beat the second level. Cause I'm like curious, especially because that'll make it easier. Cause I'll know what to do.
Yeah. You know what, folks at home, you can also treat Blake Club like a book club or a game club. You should play along and share your tales.
Exactly. Come tell us, and we can have a conversation while Mike is tearing his beard hair out.
Well, he's touching his face and getting like paint all over himself.
Yeah, again, if you haven't seen this, you have to see it. You have to see it.
Paint your face too, please. You have to.
Everyone has to paint their face as Quan Chi. All right, Rocksteady founders have a new post-Suicide Squad studio, which, Suicide Squad not even out, yet they've already moved on from it. This is from Michael McWhorter at Polygon. Rocksteady Studios founders Sefton Hill and Jamie Walker have established a new studio in London called 100 Star Games, which is described as a AAA studio startup that will consist of only 100 industry veterans and emerging talents. 100 Star Games has not been officially announced, but it is listed on the corporate data website Indole, with Hill and Walker listed as directors. And according to the company's website, which appears to have gone live in October, it's hiring for open positions. 100 Star also has a profile on the Great Places to Work website, which indicates it has around 25 employees and describes the studio's ethos to create a small team of only 100 industry veterans and emerging talents who are committed to crafting cutting-edge gaming experiences that inspire and captivate players worldwide. Hey, you can do a lot with 100 people on a team in the games industry. How do you feel about this like mandate? Be like, we're going to have 100 people and that's it. To me, it's a little bit strange, but I guess if you come from a studio that probably just experienced extreme feature creep and with something like Suicide Squad, where it's like, okay, we're going to do this with that game, and I guess we're going to try this, and we're going to try this, and now it feels like this monster of a game that is unwieldy at the very least. Having a strict limiter on what you can do because you're like, no, we're not going to hire more than 100 people. I could see how that is enticing. What do you think?
I could see how that's enticing, but I also feel like it's an odd call out to make. And I don't want to say it feels like a cop out, but it feels like, hey, if the game we make isn't ready at launch or it isn't well received, it's because we only had 100 people. We're working real hard here.
Yeah.
And it feels odd to purposely limit yourself. And I know there are games that come out that are single devs, Lethal Company, primarily, right. I believe, one dude. But when you're aiming for the AAA and perhaps a AAA game that is a licensed game in the future, it just feels odd. But I also see the appeal of like, oh, this is a murderer's row of devs. We all know what we're doing. But I also hope those people aren't being exploited.
Yeah. And Chaser in chat mentions this, and this is definitely something I was thinking too. You're going to have your 100 person team, and then you're probably going to have another 300 in contractors and external studios and people making art for you and all this stuff that you hire out. And so the people, I guarantee there will be more than 100 people in the credits of whatever game the studio puts out, as long as they appropriately credit people. And yeah, that's, of course, we're going to end up there. So it does kind of make this feel a little bit arbitrary and also maybe a little bit limiting. It's like, okay, well, these contractors that you're working with externally, you're basically just telling them straight up, there's no chance that this work is going to end up with you working for us. We already have 100 people. We're not going to hire you. I don't know.
It also feels
strange.
weird for the people internally as well, right? Of like, all right, we're 100 right now. Like, I haven't seen Steve in a while. Are we at 99 right now?
Right.
Has Sheila, have you checked in with Sheila on Slack?
Or like someone,
oh my God.
Someone new gets hired and you're like, does that mean one of us is getting fired? What the fuck?
Right. It's
weird.
And are they at a strict 100 no matter where they are on the ladder of like, say they bring in a C-level person, right? Of like, hey, this person's going to help out with finance. Shouts out to Michaela. And then are there going to be people on the middle tier of the ladder hating Michaela?
Oh,
because
she's a fine person. Stop hating on Michaela.
Exactly. Michaela's great. She has like 3 great kids.
This is also, I think, maybe not too surprising that these the fellows here, Sefton and Jamie, like left during Suicide Squad. They left sometime last year, and they're like, Suicide Squad's in great shape. We're fine. I'm like, sure. They definitely seemed like they were leaving to get out of having to see that game through. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they were happy with it, and they just wanted to try something new. But their new thing is a new AAA studio. It's probably going to make games pretty similar to what they made before. And of course they could get that because that's still where the market's at, even with capital being more expensive. If you are a senior developer who has shipped games, especially like best-selling Game of the Year games, you're going to be able to start your studio up and immediately become a AAA studio. Meaning that you could hire 100 or more people in your first year before ever shipping a game, and that's becoming more and more common. And that a big part of that is because there is so much industry acquisitions in the industry. It makes sense to invest in this stuff because you know that you could maybe one day get a big exit when Microsoft or Tencent or Google comes back in the industry. Suddenly it's like, well, we need to acquire people again because now we're back in games. With that acquisition stuff out there on the horizon, these companies can feel more comfortable being like, no, we are going to go for it right away, and we're going to matter, and we're not going to start small. So that side of it's still interesting. I'm curious to see, like, you know, how this strategy of limiting to 100 shows up on the screen in the game itself.
If they want to scale back the scope of their games as well,
probably
I'd be 100% for that as well.
Yep,
if they want to make like a smaller game like Sifu, I feel like from those studio heads, it could work out really well.
Yeah, I think they would. They'd probably find a way to, like, you know, make the game feel big budget, because 100 people is still a lot. That's a lot. That is, you know, maybe these days it's on the lower end of a AAA studio, but it's still like a big AAA studio, or at least your games have to fill AAA to justify having that many salaries. Because, I mean, very quickly that stuff adds up. I mean, it's London. If they're like, maybe they have a lot of remote and remote workers or something. But if a significant number of those people are in London, that's some of the most expensive labor in the world. Yeah. So we're probably talking at least $100,000 per year average employee salary, at least, I think. And then you're talking 100 people per year, 5, 6, 7 years for a game. That stuff adds up really fast. And then the game has to be big enough to justify that. So we'll see. I hope they're able to ride this line, because I wouldn't mind them being able to be like, hey, let's scope back, let's scale back, let's focus on what we know we can do the best. That probably is where like a new studio like this should be focusing. I think that's what got us something like the finals, right? Former Battlefield developers are like, hey, we're not going to just immediately make a shooter with destruction. And then they started making something, and then they're like, you know what? We started experimenting with a shooter with destruction in it. It's like, okay, maybe you should put that out first. They're like, yeah, that's what we're gonna do, and we get the finals, and it's a massive success. It's like the second most played game on Steam right now, behind Lethal Company. You know, not counting the perennial hits. So we'll see if this new studio, 100-star games, is able to put something out here and kind of be able to judge it at that point. At the very least, glad that these people are able to move around and maybe probably get a significant amount of investment and maybe a pay raise and all this stuff after leaving Rocksteady Studios after so long.
Give me a Darkman game.
Hell yeah. You are speaking my language right now. I love Darkman. I think, was there a Darkman game on like Super Nintendo or something like that? I'm going to look it up real quick. Darkman video game.
Darkman confused with Dick Tracy for some reason.
Definitely on Game Boy. Dick Tracy is the Darkman for sure. It's on NES as well. There we go. Okay. I'll make you play that on What's our license to thrill?
Wait, Grubb. If Darkman is terrible, Dark Dan.
Dark Dan. Oh, I hope it's long enough.
He has to play the game with bandages all around his face.
Oh shit! Yes. Okay. You're on to something. All right, let's go.
He's not listening, right?
He can't hear. He can't listen. He's got a broken finger. How can he hear anything?
Right.
Plants vs. Zombies 3, Welcome to Zomburbia is coming this year. This is from Steve Watts at GameSpot. The next Plants vs. Zombies game is slowly approaching, but getting ever closer, just like a zombie. EA and PopCap have announced that Plants vs. Zombies 3, Welcome to Zomburbia, has soft launched in the UK, Netherlands, Australia, and the Philippines. This latest phase of testing will set the stage for a full worldwide launch sometime later this year. While Plants vs. Zombies has been known better for its Garden Warfare series of shooters recently, I suppose that's true. Plants vs. Zombies 3 goes back to the series' roots, get it, as a tower defense game. Boo. You'll protect Neighborville from encroaching zombies, getting up to the usual sorts of garden-based traps and defenses, while returning favorite plants alongside new ones. PvZ3 also adds new elements like streamlined combat, a customizable Neighborville, and an episodic narrative with new characters and lore to expand the world. Hey, I liked a lot of PopCap games. I was definitely a Peggle person. I really also I liked Plants vs. Zombies. I think I played some Plants vs. Zombies 2 and enjoyed it. This franchise, this series, very popular worldwide. One of the most popular gaming IPs in China, it turns out. Plants vs. Zombies. Huge in China. Massive. The merchandising. This was like definitely true like 5 years ago, but I have no reason to think it's waned all that much, other than because there haven't been many new games, but it was massive in China. So I'm almost a little surprised it's taken this long to get back to it, but I think it maybe just took a while for a North American-based company like EA to be like, let's shift resources to appeal to China. But we'll see. Were you ever a Plants vs. Zombies guy or PopCap at all?
I was gonna say a questionable sentence about Peggle.
Okay, man, listen. We all love to be peggled. All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm here for you.
I was gonna take out the LE and just go,
Sure. Yeah, of course.
But Grubb, much like everyone else, very, very into Peggle 1, Peggle 2, Plants vs. Zombies. I was a Plants vs. Zombies 2 defender for a hot second. I like that they had a bok choy that punched. That was cool. But yeah, Plants vs. Zombies 1 occupied so much of my time when that originally came out. God, I know going back to it, it wouldn't quite be the same, but I'm interested to see what like a Plants vs. Zombies 3 would look like. And hey, gaming trends are cyclical. Maybe we're going to go back to tower defense soon.
Yeah, I mean, what did have tower defense recently? It was Steam World Build had tower defense stuff, and it's like the caves and things like that. It's like to me, it's like that's probably where tower defense pops up these days. Is like a smaller gameplay element in a larger game, having a section where it's like, no, you're going to set up some towers and shit, but this is not a tower defense game. Come on, we're not one of those. Plants vs. Zombies 3 obviously going to be a tower defense game essentially. Did you ever end up playing any of the Garden Warfare games? I have friends that love those games, and I never spent much time in them.
Yeah, I remember liking the first one enough. I thought it was pretty decent in terms of like a class-based shooter. The second one I don't remember as well, but the first Garden Warfare I have fond memories of. It was definitely one of those games where you jump into a game with randos and you'll get good games where people are playing their class and other games where what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, it's it was like, okay, I like this. I like the look of it. I think it's a good idea. And I'm like, if I'm going to play one of these shooters that's kind of not one of the main shooters, I'll probably just go to Star Wars Battlefront 2 or whatever. Or maybe go back to Titanfall 2. Something along those lines. All right, moving on. Until Dawn is being turned into a movie. This comes from Eric Hittleback Furu at Game Reactor. That derision right there is worth it because, like, isn't it already a movie? Basically, the success of Sonic the Hedgehog, Castlevania, Cyberpunk, Edge Runners, Uncharted, The Last of Us, and the Super Mario Brothers movie have made it extremely popular to at least announce movies and TV shows based on video games yet again. Most of these are adaptations of games and franchises that require quite a few changes to make sense in a non-interactive format. But here's an exception. The Hollywood Reporter has the honor of confirming that the supermassive games Until Dawn is being turned into a movie by director David F. Sandberg, who did Shazam, Lights Out, and Annabelle Creation. Gary Dauberman, who I believe wrote It and The Nun, is doing a pass on the script. And then Blair Butler, who did The Invitation and Hellstorm, originally wrote a script. I guess Gary Doberman's going to work on that or give a pass on that. Screen Gems and PlayStation Productions, which I believe are both Sony Corporation entities, are going to be producing the film. Yeah, you know what? Duh. Why not make this? A horror franchise has the potential to be very cheap to produce and has a huge return on investment if it hits. And then you get a franchise. And then this is like the easiest one to imagine that synergy of here's a movie, here's a game, here's a movie, here's a game. Every single Halloween for the next 10 years. So, yeah, makes a lot of sense. What do you think?
Yeah, it's just one of those. I saw this headline yesterday and I thought like, oh, yeah, okay, all right. And you look at the names attached to this. David F. Sandberg, those Annabelle movies,
right?
They're okay.
Yep, very successful.
Very successful. Same thing with Gary Dauberman. Dauberman,
yeah, something like that.
Dauberman, with the Annabelle franchise. I'm not super familiar with Blair Butler, but you look at these people, these are established names in the horror genre. Do you retain the same actors, Grubb?
Right. So Hayden Panettiere was in the original Until Dawn, and Rami Malek. I mean, probably the real answer is almost certainly no, right? And yes, for like Rami Malek, more expensive now. Hayden Panettiere, probably not more expensive. You probably get her for about the same as you could have got her for the game back then. Maybe a little bit more because it's a movie. But like the going rate for movies is not going to be some astronomical figure. I don't know the rest of the cast, but yeah, I think there's a chance that some return and some are different.
Yeah, but also like, what about the kind of choose your own adventure nature of the game? With Until Dawn, I
think they get cheeky about it, and they have like one little section that is like that feels like choose your own adventure, and it's like someone imagining that they did something and like, oh, it ends terribly. Like, oh, well, what if we did that differently? Or what if we did this instead? They probably have a gesture towards that in the movie, but other than that, you just play it as a standard horror film. Why not? Like that's what. Those fans of that genre want. They just want more of that stuff. They want like new, novel feeling horror films every year. So deliver one of those.
Yeah, well, they should just pull a Clue, Grubb.
Oh, that's not a bad idea. That's actually fantastic. We haven't had a lot of that, right?
Yeah, I think like the most recent thing actually is probably the mild variations in different versions of Across the Spider-Verse, where there's like small, minute things that happen from screening to screening.
Right.
At least that's what was, I believe, I remember seeing being reported. I didn't realize this was Blair Butler from Attack of the Show.
Yeah, Blair Butler's, he's,
she.
She, that's right. Blair Butler's, and then she's married to, someone else from Attack of the Show. I can't remember, I believe. Blair Butler. That's right. She's been working on a bunch of films. Did she help write? Yeah. That's cool. Wow. Let's see. I did see someone mentioned. No, never mind. I'm moving on from that. Okay, let's do this next story. Microsoft can be a good publisher across all platforms, including Sony and Nintendo. The CEO says this from Darren Bontheus at GameSpot. Microsoft is expanding its game development plans, as it explained in a new interview, where CEO Satya Nadella explained that the company aims to become a quote, good publisher across all platforms. These comments come in the wake of Microsoft finally closing the deal on Activision Blizzard, a process that took more than a year to complete and faced numerous legal challenges along the way. We've been at gaming. We love gaming. In fact, Flight Simulator was created even before Windows, but we were number 3, number 4. And with Activision, I think we have a chance of being a good publisher, quite frankly, on Sony and Nintendo and PCs and Xbox. And Nadella said to Bloomberg, we are very excited about that acquisition closing and very glad we've got it through. This is like an answer, like it's a pretty standard interview where they're just like, hey, what about gaming? How do you guys view that now? And Satya Nadella being the CEO and not being Phil Spencer is like, hey, here's how I view it. But this is like puts them in that situation where it's like, yeah, they have Xbox. They're going to continue supporting that platform. Game Pass is their main focus. And at the same time, they are now suddenly one of the biggest third-party publishers in the world with Activision. And they kind of have to be thinking about both those things. Do you think like the gravity of one or the other wins over time? Do you think like Activision's success maybe under Xbox kind of draws Xbox more into the third-party realm or vice versa?
I guess I never thought about how we've talked about Blizzard, Activision, and Microsoft for so long now that I haven't actually entertained the idea of what that looks like in the future for Microsoft and Xbox as like a third party publisher. Yeah, I think they'd be fine. I feel like they've brokered enough relationships at this point where it's odd for me to think about Persona kind of having like a weird, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but like an association with Microsoft now because of it heading to Game Pass.
Mm-hmm.
And like, oh shit, like that's pretty tight to be able to try not all the Personas, but most of the modern Personas through Game Pass. What if I played that on xCloud, Grubb?
Yeah.
In VR.
Yeah. Works really well, huh?
Get those social links going.
Get those social links up in your brain.
Oh no.
Right there.
I could see this Microsoft pivoting to become like a bigger third party publisher. And I mean, it kind of feels that way right now with their relationship with games launching day and date on Game Pass, like with Capcom and everything. And yeah, I don't know. I don't think about Halo or Gears of War now when I think about Xbox, and that feels weird.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing where I think it's like it's going to be like this ecosystem, and like a legit ecosystem where it's like one thing feeds into the other thing, and then that feeds into the next thing, and it's not necessarily about like, okay, we need to move Xbox in this direction towards what Activision is doing, or we need to move Activision towards Xbox and what it's doing. It's like, no, like Activision's success is going to enable more stuff to go into Game Pass, and Game Pass's success is going to enable Microsoft to make more games, and a variety of games, like huge games and some smaller stuff that is going to make a lot of sense to put on the Switch and the PlayStation, and that whether that stuff is Hi-Fi Rush, Pentiment, or anything else, or big live service games like Sea of Thieves. And it's like that, okay, and that stuff will eventually in a couple years end up on these other publishing or other hardware platforms. And then in the meantime, that will just lead back into the success of Activision and Call of Duty being everywhere. And if you want to get a good deal on it, Call of Duty is going to be in Game Pass and all this stuff. So it feels like they have this self-perpetuating machine that can make them a lot of money as long as they can continue to like land some punches in many of these games being good. You know, getting the quality of Call of Duty back up's got to be a priority, of course. And then a priority is going to be making sure a lot of these first-party Microsoft games actually feel as important as they've made them out to be. And if they could start doing that stuff, it's like, okay, they have all the other pieces there to make a lot of money and to be a massive player in the game space going forward. Whatever that ends up looking like exactly is not going to matter so much as, oh, the bottom line is there, and they feel very happy about the amount of money that they're making in gaming.
Do you think these console warriors that are still defending tribalism over console platforms, do you think they are infuriated at this prospect and the future of Xbox and Microsoft that they're not willing to see?
Yes, they're 100% infuriated. I think part of it, yeah, definitely. Part of it is they want the communication to be there about like, hey, like what's going on here is Hi-Fi Rush feels like a almost a mascot for Xbox, or at least that's how we treated it. So why is this it feels so weird because of that. That it might end up on the Switch. And we kind of want you just to explain what you're doing here. And the Microsoft doesn't really do that. They talk a lot to their fans, and then they get really quiet about this stuff. And when fans are like, "Hey, I'm feeling anxious about this. What's going on?" And at the end of the day, it's like they have actually explained it a bunch of times. They aren't that concerned about this console race that you hold so near and dear, and they've basically moved on from it. And they're asking you to just move along with them, and you keep refusing to do that. They're not going to keep answering the same question over and over again, and they're especially not going to offer it up just to make you feel better when the answer is lying out there right in front of you and you're ignoring it. So, yeah, it's definitely something that I think that these fans are frustrated by, but it's at this point it's their own fault. They need to kind of wake up and see what's happening.
They're too delulu, Grubb.
They're a little delulu, just a tiny bit. Okay, last couple things here. Larian boss says the studio's games won't come to subscription services. This is from Tom Ivan at VGC. I'll read some of these quotes real quick. Whatever the future of games looks like, content will always be king. Vinky said, but it's going to be a lot harder to get good content if subscription becomes the dominant model and a select group gets to decide what goes to market and what doesn't. Direct from developer to players is the way. And I think this is right. I think this is definitely right. Anytime we can have more direct from the creator to the person buying the thing, the better. Human nature does end up with us getting stuff like Amazon, where it's like, free 2-day shipping. I'm just gonna go get whatever's on Amazon. I'm not gonna shop around. I'm not gonna go find some random website and hope for the best. People do prize convenience over a lot of these factors, but gaming has a lot of momentum built in where people are like very happy to go to accepted games distribution platforms, but take chances on games that they aren't fully aware of, especially on stuff like Steam and things like that. And I think that momentum will carry forward. And so my assumption here is the actual way that all this looks like, the future of gaming, what it looks like, as Sven starts talking about here, is exactly what it looks like now. Subscriptions are an option. They're something you can do, and all the games you can get in the subscription service, you can continue to buy separately if you want to, and most of them you can also get physically. Some are digital only. That's been the case for a very long time now, since the middle of the 2000s, where we started getting Xbox Live Arcade games and things like that. But having these options available is a good thing, as long as they don't begin like shutting things off, and it does become that situation where it's like, okay, you can't succeed unless you're on Game Pass. And now the keepers of that platform are picking winners and losers. That would be a huge detriment to gaming overall. It doesn't seem to me like we're at any risk of that happening right now, Jan. I don't know. What do you think?
No, I can't see that happening either. Especially when folks are clambering to get Baldur's Gate 3 onto consoles. I don't see that immediate future and I applaud Larian for sticking to their guns. But I also don't see like a platform holder like Microsoft shooing them away because they disagree to be on Game Pass. Yeah, right. And it's like, I think for a lot of developers, and Vinky from Larian acknowledges this, a lot of developers feel much more comfortable, like financially stable, when they make their Game Pass deal. And a lot of developers have said that. And they're developers who are making games that are much smaller than fucking Baldur's Gate 3. Yeah. And it's like he completely recognizes that, and he's not like saying we have to dismantle Game Pass. He's explaining why he doesn't think Larian's games are going to show up on subscription services anytime soon, if ever. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that I want there to be a world where a lot of publishers are saying, here are the reasons why we want you to buy our games. Every game on subscription services sounds good up to a point, but then we get back to that conversation we've been having sort of over the last week or so about that race to the bottom, and about eroding the value of saying a game is important enough to me to actually spend $60 to $70 on it. And once you sort of lose that luster, that magic of believing a game is worth $60 to $70, the whole house of cards can come tumbling down. And suddenly we are in a situation where it's like, oh, this kind of does look like the rough world of movies and musics, where we aren't taking any chances anymore. Agreed. All right. Ace Combat 7 is coming to the Switch. That's wild. It's launching in July. The next Sonic game is a Fall Guys inspired spinoff. That's the rumor. And then 8BitDo's PC and Steam Deck controllers now have the Hall effect sensor. The Switch version, I believe, already has that, but now the PC version
is getting that as well. And they just relaunched that. It's $50. I love the 8BitDo Ultimate. It is the controller I use the most. That's the one I have sitting right over here. D-pad is like pretty good. No D-pad is great these days. Most of them are like okay to good. This one's good. But at the very least, it's a great controller otherwise, and it's very comfortable, and I like using it. And now Hall effect sensors guarantee, almost guarantee, you won't get stick drift ever. Pretty cool. Okay, Jan, that does it for the news. I'm going to get the poll up here in a second. In the meantime, why don't we tell people what we have going on giantbomb.com?
What we got going on immediately, well, near immediately after this, is you and Dan Reichert are going to embark on a grand adventure of whatever the hell is Tale of the Sun.
We're going to find out for ourselves.
I still don't know. I'm looking at a screenshot now because I got to make that page. Later today, we are talking over the Xbox Developer Direct at noontime Pacific, 3 Eastern. After that, we will immediately roll into Voicemail Dump Truck. Tomorrow for UPF, I believe it's going to be a POW World, Grubb.
That's right, POW World.
The plan is for you, me, Nikki, and Sean to, the game is supposedly multiplayer. So we will try and multiplayer this up. And Bombcast Revengeance as well tomorrow. Another episode of Game Mess Mornings tomorrow as well.
That's right.
The week.
Yeah, we're packing a bunch of stuff in here right now. And that Tale of the Sun stream, Tale of the Grubb, is going to start basically right after this. I'll have to get set up. But just stick around with us if you're watching it live. And if you're watching later, just check out giantbomb.com or our YouTube channel for all this content. Let's see here. The poll question from yesterday. Are we free of Billy Mitchell now? This came up because he settled with Twin Galaxies, basically, and got his scores half reinstated to the historical database. It's not on the actual list right now for Donkey Kong, but he seems satisfied with this, and he's like, I'm going to move on to my other pressing matters, or however he put it. And I was hoping we'd be free, but only 86% of people believe we are not free of Billy Mitchell. 14% believe we actually will be free. I think I had to go with no, we are still not going to be free of Billy Mitchell. How do you feel, Jan?
We will never be free of Billy Mitchell. He is gaming's villain.
Yep. Yeah, you're right. He is the number one heel and has been for decades now. All right. New poll question. Have you ever played Plants vs. Zombies? Yes or no? We'll discuss that on Game Mess Mornings here on Giant Bomb tomorrow morning. Speaking of that, one more time, stick around. Tale of the Sun, Tale of the Grubb. We'll be getting that going here very soon. All right. Jan, thank you for hanging out with me today and talking about video games, man. I really appreciate it.
It is my favorite way to start a Thursday morning.
And then last thing here, apparently, oh no, I clicked on the Chun-Li doing a squat link. Never mind. This other link here says that Remedy and Rockstar settled the dispute over the trademark last year. And the thing that people found where there was a dispute is outdated, and they've worked it out. So there you go. No news to be seen there. All right, everybody. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself. You're the best audience gaming. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.